Let me ask you something. Have you ever given so much of yourself that you ended up feeling invisible in the very relationship you fought to keep? Not because you weren't worthy, but because you never said enough. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about protecting the parts of you that make love even possible. A woman without boundaries isn't more loving, she's more lost. And today, we're going to change that. If you don't set the standard, someone else will. And that's how self-betrayal begins, quietly, almost unnoticeably. At first, it might look like compromise. You excuse the unanswered texts, you tolerate the delayed apologies, you tell yourself that they're just not great at expressing feelings. But deep down, you know what's happening. You're letting someone else decide what you deserve. That's what happens when boundaries are blurry. The relationship stops being a place of connection and starts being a negotiation of your worth. Every woman has a silent contract with herself, a sense of how she wants to be treated, loved, and valued. But when that contract stays unspoken, when those standards aren't made clear, you leave them up for interpretation. And most people, even the ones who care about you, will interpret them in the way that's most convenient for them. Not necessarily because they're bad people, but because we teach others how to treat us by what we allow, what we tolerate, and what we reinforce. If you don't step forward and say, this is what love looks like for me, then someone else will step in and say, here's what I'm willing to offer, and expect you to be grateful for it. The truth is, many women have been conditioned to believe that setting a standard makes them demanding, cold, or hard to love. So instead, they soften their needs, they silence their instincts, and they overfunction in relationships, hoping that being accommodating will earn them the love they long for. But love that's earned by self-abandonment is not love at all. It's performance. And over time, that performance becomes exhausting. Setting the standard isn't about being controlling. It's about clarity. It's about saying, I know who I am, I know what I value, and I won't dilute that just to be accepted. It's about establishing your emotional baseline, what's acceptable, what's healthy, and what's sustainable. Because relationships are not built on chemistry or compatibility alone. They're built on shared standards and mutual respect. When you don't set the standard, you start to adapt to theirs. You start to believe that love is supposed to be uncertain, that your needs are too much, that waiting around for change is loyalty, not self-neglect. And suddenly, you're in a relationship where your silence is mistaken for agreement, your patience is mistaken for weakness, and your flexibility is mistaken for a lack of identity. But there is power in saying, this is the level at which I operate, this is how I give, and this is what I require in return. It doesn't mean you won't compromise. It means you won't compromise yourself. It means you're willing to walk away from what doesn't honor you because you trust that protecting your peace is more important than preserving a bond that's built on your silence. The people who truly value you won't be threatened by your standards. They'll rise to meet them. They won't see your boundaries as rejection. They'll see them as direction. And if they don't, then the boundary has done its job. It revealed who was never really meant to have that kind of access to you in the first place. So set the standard. Speak the boundary. Declare what love looks like to you, not because you're hard to love, but because you finally realized you're too valuable to settle for anything less. Respect isn't a request. It's a requirement. The moment you treat it like something to be earned, bargained for, or begged for, you've already compromised the foundation of any relationship you're in. Love without respect is control. Affection without respect is manipulation. And attention without respect is just noise. It might feel like connection in the moment, but it's hollow, temporary, and almost always leaves you questioning your worth. Far too many women are taught, directly or indirectly, that asking for respect makes them difficult, high maintenance, or too much. Respect is not about being worshipped. It's about being seen, heard, and treated as an equal. It's being spoken to with care, even in conflict. It's being valued in your fullness, your intellect, your boundaries, your dreams, not just for what you give or how well you accommodate. When respect is present, love feels safe. You don't walk on eggshells. You don't have to constantly prove your worth. You don't have to wonder if you're asking for too much, because the right person never makes you feel like basic decency is a burden. Respect shows up in the details. It's in the way someone listens when you speak. It's in how they speak about you when you're not around. It's in how they respond when you say no, how they adjust when you express discomfort, how they take accountability instead of turning things back on you. And if those things are missing, it doesn't matter how much they say they love you. Because love without respect is always performative. Some people will only offer you the level of respect you demand, not because they're inherently unkind, but because we all operate within the boundaries we're given. If you keep explaining away their lack of effort, if you continue showing up for someone who disappears when it's inconvenient, if you stay silent every time your dignity is on the line, you send a message that your value is negotiable. And once that message is out there, it becomes harder and harder to take it back. Setting the expectation for respect is not harsh, it's healthy. It tells others that your presence is not a privilege to be mishandled. It reminds you that you don't have to twist yourself into a version that's more palatable just to keep someone interested. It protects you from relationships that drain you, confuse you, or chip away at your self-esteem one passive-aggressive comment at a time. And yes, some people will push back. They'll call you cold. They'll accuse you of being guarded. They'll try to convince you that what you're asking for is unreasonable. But that's the gift of boundaries. They don't just protect you, they reveal who is truly safe to let in. Anyone who's threatened by your need for respect was never planning to offer it in the first place. At the end of the day, you teach the world how to treat you by what you allow. So stop explaining why you deserve the bare minimum. Stop shrinking so someone else can feel bigger in the room. Stop waiting for someone to come around to the idea of honoring you. You are not a problem to be fixed. You are a person to be respected. And the right relationship will never make you feel like you have to earn that. Your time is an investment, not a donation. It's not something you give away freely, hoping someone else will eventually recognize its value. It's a resource, just like your energy, your presence, your emotional labor. And when you treat it as expendable, others will too. One of the most powerful boundaries a woman can set in a relationship is around her time, because it reflects how much she honors herself. Too often, time is mistaken for love. We think that showing up constantly, being always available, adjusting our schedules to fit theirs, and putting our priorities on hold is a sign of deep commitment. But there's a difference between being supportive and being self-sacrificing. One nurtures a relationship. The other slowly erodes your identity. When you give your time to someone, you're not just offering hours, you're offering your attention, your emotional presence, and your life force. And if you find yourself consistently pouring into someone who only takes and rarely reciprocates, that's not devotion, it's depletion. Relationships built on imbalance, where one person shows up and the other just shows off, aren't sustainable. Eventually, the one who keeps giving starts feeling empty, invisible, and resentful. You are not here to be someone's emotional backup, late-night convenience, or weekend filler. Your availability does not prove your value. In fact, when you constantly make room for someone who doesn't prioritize you, you send the message that your time, and therefore your life, is negotiable. And once your time is taken for granted, it's only a matter of time before you are too. Choosing how and with whom you spend your time is one of the most radical acts of self-respect. It requires discernment. It means paying attention to how people respond to your boundaries. Do they support your growth, or do they interrupt it? Do they honor your commitments, or expect you to drop everything for theirs? Do they value the moments you share, or treat your presence like a given? Protecting your time isn't selfish. It's strategic. It ensures you have enough left for the things that matter most: your passions, your peace, your goals, your well-being. It allows you to show up in your relationship from a place of fullness, not fatigue. And it gives your partner the opportunity to rise to your standard, to make plans, to be intentional, to prioritize your presence instead of assuming it. People who genuinely care about you will respect your time. They'll ask instead of assume. They'll plan instead of interrupt. They'll understand that your life doesn't pause just because they've entered the picture. And they'll see your boundaries not as a barrier, but as an invitation to treat you with the seriousness you deserve. And if someone doesn't value your time, if they're inconsistent, disrespectful, or dismissive, that's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their readiness. And it's your cue to walk away, not wait around. Because love should never require you to abandon yourself. Every minute you spend is a seed planted. What you water grows. So choose wisely. Give your time to people and places that expand you, not deplete you. Let your time reflect your values, not your fears. Because when you stop treating your time like a donation and start investing it like a treasure, everything in your life starts to shift. From how others treat you to how you see yourself. You are not here to be anyone's afterthought. You are here to be valued deeply and consistently. And that begins with how you value your time. You're not difficult. You're discerning. There's a big difference. Difficult is when you make demands with no room for dialogue. Discerning is when you have standards rooted in self-awareness and self-respect. And yet, for far too long, women have been told that having needs, expressing boundaries, or expecting emotional maturity makes them too much. But the truth is, knowing what you want and what you will not tolerate is not a flaw, it's a form of power. You become labeled as difficult the moment your clarity threatens someone else's comfort. The moment you say, I won't accept breadcrumbs of attention, or I need consistency to feel safe. You disrupt the dynamic that benefits from your silence. But standing firm in your truth isn't about making things harder for others. It's about making things healthier for yourself. Discernment comes from knowing your patterns, your past, your pain, and your progress. It's what allows you to see the difference between charm and character, between apologies and actual change, between chemistry and compatibility. It's not that your heart is closed, it's that your eyes are finally open. And when your vision is clear, the things you used to chase no longer look appealing. The relationships you used to justify now feel draining. The attention you once craved no longer satisfies. That's not coldness, that's growth. There's a narrative that tells women to be easygoing in order to be lovable. Be agreeable, be flexible, be quiet. But that kind of easy often leads to emotional erasure. You start minimizing what you need to keep the peace. You tolerate inconsistency to avoid being abandoned. You internalize the idea that love means adapting to someone else's limits instead of honoring your own. And slowly you become unrecognizable to yourself. But when you're discerning, you stop shrinking to fit someone else's version of love. You stop twisting your identity to accommodate dysfunction. You realize that emotional contortion is not connection, it's survival. And you were not born to survive love. You were born to experience it fully, open, mutual, and safe. Being discerning means you ask hard questions. You refuse to appropriate love. You observe actions more than you trust words. You don't confuse potential with partnership. And you're willing to walk away not because you don't care, but because you care too much about your peace to stay where you are not respected. It's not cynicism, it's clarity. And that clarity becomes your compass. You don't need to apologize for having standards. You don't need to soften your truths to keep someone interested. The right person will not find your discernment threatening, they'll find it inspiring. Because people who are serious about love are drawn to those who are serious about themselves. And the ones who fall away when you hold your ground, they were never strong enough to meet you there anyway. So let them call you difficult. Let them misunderstand you. That's not your burden to carry. You're not here to be palatable, you're here to be powerful. And powerful women are often mislabeled until the world catches up to their worth. Your job isn't to be easy to love. It's to love yourself so clearly that anything less becomes impossible to entertain. You're not too much. You're just finally refusing to be too little for the life and love you deserve. You're not difficult, you're discerning. And that discernment is your protection, your guide, and your proof that you've grown, that don't dim it, stand in it. Because real love won't require you to question whether your truth is inconvenient. It will honor the fact that you speak it. Access to you should be earned, not assumed. Your energy, your attention, your presence, these are not things to be handed out freely to anyone who shows interest. They are earned through consistency, integrity, and mutual respect. The moment you start giving unrestricted access to people who haven't proven they're capable of holding space for you, you teach them that your value is up for grabs. And that's where the erosion of self-worth begins. Not in loud betrayals, but in quiet allowances. There's a dangerous myth that says love means being endlessly available. That if you really care, you'll always be reachable, always responsive, always willing to make space, no matter how little effort is being returned. But love without discernment isn't generosity. It's self-neglect. When you allow people into your life without boundaries, without filters, without clarity about who gets what level of access, you don't create closeness, you create chaos. Not everyone deserves front row seats to your life. Some people only show up when it's convenient. Some want the benefits of your presence without the responsibility of honoring it. Some like the idea of you more than the reality of showing up for you. And when you allow those people too much access, they begin to shape the narrative. Suddenly, you're spending time justifying your worth, managing their insecurities, and diluting your truth to make yourself more manageable. But here's the truth. People treat you according to the access they've been given. If someone can disappear and come back without consequence, they will. If someone can cross emotional lines and still receive your affection, they'll assume you don't really mean what you say. Access is not just about presence. It's about accountability. It's about saying, this is who I am, and here is how you need to show up if you want to be close to me. This doesn't mean becoming cold or closed off. It means being intentional. It means observing how people respond to your no, how they handle your silence, how they adjust when you name a boundary. It's not about playing games. It's about protecting your peace. Because the wrong people will interpret unrestricted access as permission to take without giving, to expect without investing, to consume without caring. And you are not a public space for emotional convenience. You are a human being with depth, with needs, with a soul that deserves reverence. And anyone who wants to be close to you should earn that privilege, not just assume it. That earning doesn't have to be dramatic. It's in the little things. Do they follow through? Do they listen? Do they respect your time, your energy, your space? Do they treat your vulnerability as sacred or as something to be used? When you start honoring yourself, your boundaries become magnetic. They repel the entitled and attract the aligned. The people who are meant for you won't be afraid to earn their place. They'll feel honored to. They won't resent your standards. They'll rise to meet them. And if someone walks away because they didn't want to meet your boundaries, let them. That's not rejection, that's revelation. Your presence is a privilege. Your story, your time, your love, those are gifts, not giveaways. That's not arrogance, it's alignment. And when you live from that place, you no longer chase love. You become the standard that love rises to meet. Love should empower, not exhaust. It should feel like fuel, not fire. When you're in a relationship that honors who you are, love becomes the wind at your back, not the weight on your shoulders. Yet far too often, love is mistaken for struggle, and emotional labor becomes the currency used to prove loyalty. But if love drains you more than it sustains you, that's not love. It's survival dressed in affection. Exhaustion in love doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like being the only one who initiates hard conversations. Sometimes it looks like constantly explaining how you feel only to be met with defensiveness or silence. It looks like shrinking your truth to avoid conflict, or carrying the emotional weight of two people while pretending everything is fine. It's not just about being tired. It's about being unseen, unheard, and unheld. Empowering love, on the other hand, feels expansive. It creates space for your voice, your dreams, your needs. It doesn't demand perfection, but it does require honesty. It's not about losing yourself in another person. It's about being more of who you are. with someone who celebrates that wholeness. Empowering love supports your growth, it lifts your spirit, and it reminds you that love is meant to be a soft place to land, not a battle to survive. The exhaustion often begins when boundaries are absent or blurry, when you begin to accept love in fragments, when you mistake someone's potential for their presence, when you believe that love means enduring rather than evolving. And the more you give without receiving, the more you begin to believe that your needs are a burden, that your sensitivity is a flaw, that you have to work for what should be freely given. But real love doesn't ask you to abandon yourself to be chosen. It doesn't thrive on sacrifice that empties you. It doesn't celebrate your silence just because it keeps things peaceful. Love that empowers you wants to know you fully. It invites you to speak freely, to be honest even when it's uncomfortable, and to hold space for mutual accountability, not blame or avoidance. When love empowers you, it energizes your life rather than distracting you from it. You find yourself more focused, more inspired, more at peace. You no longer live in survival mode, anxiously reading between the lines of someone's mixed signals. You know where you stand because love has made it safe to stand tall. There's clarity, not confusion. There's effort, not excuses. And it's important to remember, exhaustion is not the price of love. It's the evidence of imbalance. If you're constantly tired in your relationship, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's time to ask why. What are you carrying that isn't yours? What are you fixing that doesn't want to be healed? What are you proving and to whom? Empowering love won't fix you, but it will remind you that you were never broken. It won't complete you, but it will complement the life you're already building. It won't demand that you do all the work, but it will meet you halfway, again and again. You deserve a love that feels like partnership, not punishment. A love that lifts you, not leaves you depleted. A love that brings calm to your chaos, not confusion to your clarity. And that kind of love begins with you, with how you treat yourself, with what you believe you're worthy of, with the boundaries you set and the energy you protect. Love should empower, not exhaust. It should add, not subtract. And when you finally choose that kind of love, everything changes. Not just in your relationship, but in how you show up for the rest of your life.